It was a warm autumn evening in the quiet village of Chandpur. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting an orange glow over the fields and the dense cluster of trees at the village's edge. Rahul and Priya, siblings who had recently returned from the city to visit their grandparents, walked down the dirt path leading to the farm. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and dried hay. Children's laughter echoed faintly in the distance, accompanied by the occasional bark of a stray dog. It seemed like an ordinary evening, peaceful and undisturbed. Rahul, holding a wooden basket, stopped suddenly and gestured to the side of the path. "Look, Priya, that pumpkin is enormous." His voice was a mixture of awe and excitement. In a patch of overgrown weeds stood a massive, oddly shaped pumpkin. It looked out of place, as though it didn't belong to the neat rows of crops cultivated nearby. Its skin was darker than normal pumpkins, almost black in the fading light, and faint, vein-like patterns ran across its surface. Priya hesitated. There was something unnerving about it, something she couldn't quite put into words. But Rahul, always the adventurous one, hopped over the fence and crouched beside the pumpkin. "I'm taking this to Dadi," he declared. "She'll love it for tomorrow's festival." As Rahul struggled to lift the heavy pumpkin, Priya's unease grew. The silence around them felt oppressive, as though the surrounding trees were holding their breath. The wind that had rustled the leaves just moments ago had stilled. She scanned the path behind them and saw nothing but shadows creeping slowly closer as the sun set. "Rahul, hurry up! It's getting late." Finally managing to wrestle the pumpkin into his basket, Rahul rejoined her on the path. The two of them walked quickly back to the house, their shadows stretching long and thin under the dim light of the rising moon. The pumpkin sat ominously in the basket, its dark surface glistening faintly as though it were alive. When they reached the house, their grandmother greeted them warmly. "What a lovely pumpkin," she exclaimed, though her voice faltered slightly as she leaned closer to inspect it. "Where did you find this?" "By the field," Rahul replied, setting it down on the kitchen table. "It's perfect for the festival, isn't it?" Dadi nodded, but her wrinkled face betrayed a hint of concern. She mumbled something under her breath in a language neither of them understood before placing a small diya lamp next to the pumpkin. "Keep this lit," she instructed. "Don't ask questions, just do it." That night, the siblings lay in the small room they shared, the sound of crickets filling the air. Rahul, as usual, fell asleep quickly, but Priya couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She stared at the ceiling, the faint flicker of the diya lamp visible through the doorway. For a brief moment, she thought she heard a sound, soft, wet, and slithering. Her heart pounded as she sat up in bed, straining her ears. The sound came again, louder this time, like something sticky dragging across the wooden floor. She tiptoed out of the room and froze in the doorway to the kitchen. The pumpkin was no longer on the table. It sat in the middle of the floor, its dark skin gleaming unnaturally in the moonlight streaming through the window. But what truly terrified her was the jagged crack now running across its surface, as though it were splitting open. From inside, a faint red glow pulsed, and Priya swore she saw something move within the cracks. A soft whisper filled the room, so faint she could barely make it out. "Hungry?" She stumbled backward, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. The pumpkin's crack widened and something long and sinewy slithered out, a black, slimy tendril that writhed like a living thing. It reached toward the diya lamp and snuffed it out with a single wet swipe. Priya turned and ran back to the room, shaking Rahul awake. "Rahul, get up. Something's wrong with that pumpkin." Her voice was frantic, but he groggily opened his eyes, confused. "What are you talking about?" he mumbled, but the terror in her expression made him sit up. Before she could explain, the whisper came again, louder this time. "So hungry." The siblings turned toward the doorway. A shadow loomed there, tall, monstrous, and unmistakably not human. The pumpkin, or what was left of it, had grown grotesquely. Its surface was now split wide open, revealing rows of needle-like teeth glinting in the darkness. Two glowing red orbs, unmistakably eyes, burned within its gaping maw. The creature lunged forward with unnatural speed, its tendrils whipping toward them. Rahul grabbed Priya's hand, and they bolted out of the room, their feet pounding against the wooden floor. They could hear it behind them, the wet, slithering sound of its body dragging along, accompanied by guttural, inhuman growls. They ran toward the shrine outside their house, where Dadi kept her offerings to the gods. The air felt colder now, heavier, as though the creature's presence was sucking the life out of everything around it. "Light the diya!" Priya screamed, fumbling for the matches. The moment the flames sparked to life, the creature froze. It writhed and screamed, a sound so piercing and unnatural that it made their ears ring. The siblings watched in horror as its tendrils recoiled and its glowing red eyes dimmed. With one last shuddering groan, the creature collapsed into a pile of black, oozing ash. Dadi appeared behind them, her face grim but unsurprised. "I told you not to bring anything from the forest after dark," she said quietly. "Some things are not meant to be disturbed." Rahul and Priya stared at the ashes, their hearts still pounding. The night had returned to its eerie stillness, but the memories of what they had seen would haunt them forever.